Greetings and salutations. My name is Jello, and you are with us tonight in the room that is, well, we're 14 feet underground, almost 14, nearly 14 feet underground. Tonight we're in Quebec. But we're with the most awesome human that we've had on the show 3 times. Actually, I'm holding up 2 3, so that's now 6. We're not doing math. On Utility Room, we have showcased dozens of conversations about breakbeats, a genre that has encapsulated electronic funk in all of its forms. And if you've been raving or clubbing, partying since the mid-90s, or listening to mixtapes that were served to you by the mixtape reviewer of Canada's most popular printed magazine for underground music and the scene, called Tribe, or if you've been on a dance floor and wanted to find a specific breaks record to fill your box, then it's this human right here who's with us tonight, who helped make that shit happen here in Toronto and coast to coast in Canada. And he's very humble about this, I think. He's also got that rare title, the holder, as I said, of a 3-time appearance here on the Utility Room. And we're happy to have him back with us tonight. Please welcome to the show, D-Monic. Dan, love you. Thank you for being here. You know what? I'm gonna go ahead and talk about how we actually already had recorded this episode in preparation for the idea that I wasn't going to be in Toronto tonight, and that you've been super busy with all kinds of work and life stuff as well, and we recorded it, and somehow through this very awesome session that happened, I didn't engage my microphone, so we've got all of D-Monic and then none of me. So I mean, if there was some lip reading that was happening or possible, perhaps the episode would be salvageable. Not now. So here we are again. How you doing tonight?
All me and no you. That sounds fantastic.
The show is called Utility Room with D-Monic, so makes sense.
Yeah, that's true.
All right, I'm
doing good.
I'm pouring one, and I'm happy you're back. You're doing good. Is it easier that we're going later tonight, or is it one of those things where you're like,
makes no difference to me.
Like,
I'm a night person. Always have been.
Are you? So that's what I was trying to get to. I'm like now that we're not raving, and we haven't really been raving in almost 2 years now that we're not raving at all, you know, as like the time thing, is it caught up to you? Or like, I guess what is considered to be normal time, the time that non-ravers consider to be time.
No, absolutely. That's one of the things that I've really noticed, is that I'm actually getting up early, which is unusual to me, and my alcohol intake is way down. So I'm concerned about that. But other than
really,
that, yeah.
You know, down. I'm hearing the opposite. You know, that it seems like
for a lot of people it is the opposite. Yeah.
Right. And I mean, it makes you wonder, like, what was keeping it in check before? You know, when people are like, "Oh, I've been doing a lot of this lately," and it's like, well, what brought that on?
For me, I know I'm a social drinker, so I have a struggle drinking alone. So I just don't. A lot of people just like drinking. It's not me.
I don't really understand beer. It's kind of it's a bit of a strange drink. So
it is. I'm not really a fan. They always said it's an acquired taste. It tastes like piss. So why would I want to acquire that?
I want to get into it with you. Why did you want to run a record label?
Sure. That's a good question. So back in the day, there was always a progression of a DJ's career. You started off on the dance floor, then you started DJing, and then you got bigger as a DJ, and then you either went in a couple of different directions. You either started throwing parties, you started making your own music, or you started a record label. It was just like an evolution of things. So I actually did that. I started throwing parties under the Pure Funk banner. Did that for a bit, and then I actually tried to make music and it never really clicked. I didn't have that drive or desire to just like really get into it. That I found out that it wasn't something that I was really all that interested in. And the times that I did try to make something, it was awful, just hideous.
What was
And
what was
I've
it?
spent a lot of
What
time
do you
in
think the
studios.
obstacle was that was in your path to because clearly
I don't
you
know. I
love the
think,
music, and I know that you're like,
oh yeah,
it's not like machine learning's a problem for you. You're, I mean, websites, all kinds of design, like you're online. So
yeah. I think for me it was a combination of lack of patience and lack of, um, I guess, as a result of lack of patience, there was lack of creativity. To actually get really good at producing music, it takes a long time. It's a big effort. There's a lot of stuff to learn, and I was not very patient back then. I, like a lot of people, I need to make music now. What's the quickest possible way I can make music? And a lot of people did that. And I also, at the same time as that, I also had a relatively high quality standard. So I tried to find the fastest way to make something, and then when I listened to it, it was crap. So I just didn't like it. But I didn't also put in the time to learn how to do it better or how to improve over time. Uh, like I even went the way of getting of working with engineers. I worked with some of the best, and even then, it was just like a lack of patience thing. I think where I just the ideas weren't flowing, and I couldn't properly articulate what I wanted, and it just never worked out. So I just didn't have the drive or desire to pursue it. So failing that,
your superpowers
um,
were just, they were also elsewhere, weren't they?
oh yeah, yeah. At that time, thinking back to that era, I was playing about 5 to 6 nights a week. I was working at Eastern Bloc. Um, I wasn't doing the tribe stuff anymore. I was producing events, so I was busy. I was quite busy. So I had a lot going on, and the sad thing about that era was that things started to drift. Um, I think they already had, but it was starting to become more and more prevalent that you couldn't just be a DJ anymore. From the scene's beginnings, it was the DJs that were the rock stars. They're the ones that crafted the sound of the night. They're the ones that took the people on the journey. And over time, promoters started to be bringing in more out of town acts that made the music. And then it appeared that that's all that people really wanted. That's sort of where the club culture, concert culture thing started to the balance started to change because they wanted to see the people that made the music. So the DJs who were only DJs like myself realized that if I wanted to get those more bookings, I needed to start making music, and so many people did that, whether they wanted to or not. I just had that hard conversation with myself that said, like, look, I can put some stuff out, but it's going to be garbage. So why would I want that attached to my name? I'm
Why
just
do you
going to
think
do
that
something else.
happened?
But
Why do you think this happened? Why do you think the change
um,
happened from somebody who was just a selector to somebody who was selecting their own selections?
so it's always it's an inherently Canadian thing where we value things from outside our borders better than we do inside. And even if you go back to your interviews with Mike Stein, um, even in those early days, those early Pleasure Force days, they were bringing in acts from overseas that were known for music that they put out, like Asen and other acts like that. So it became it got to the point where the headliner of the show was A, an out of towner, and B, someone that made songs that you might have heard somewhere. That, like, at that time, back in that time, everybody was playing ASIN records. There was a show that they brought D-Light. That was a thing. So it started to shift where, yes, the party has majority DJs, but the headliner makes music. And in a lot of the cases back then, there was a split. There were like strictly artists and then DJs that made good music. And then from there, like, people just put two and two together. It's like, oh, if I want to get higher up on that flyer, I'm going to have to start making music. And then everybody rushes out to make music, and then the world gets flooded with garbage music. And that happened a lot here too. We had a lot of DJs and stuff that were afraid of losing their top spots, and they started making music. Some of it was good, most of it was crap, and that's just what it was. You needed that legitimate billing thing under your name, some sort of record, some sort of release, some sort of something. And that's just how things started to go. Like, if you wanted to get higher in that flyer list, you needed to not just be a DJ. And even though I wasn't just a DJ, the only way to be on that stage was to make music. I didn't want to do that, so I had to find another way to do that. So the label was born.
I like this, Dan. That was tight.
And I've actually proved that point once or twice. I remember specifically one night I was in a club, and it's not even the people are fans of the music that the DJ made. It's the fact that that sort of in people's minds, like, psychologically push them up a bit in the echelon of performers. I remember specifically there was one night, I think it was at Footwork, and I was talking to somebody, and they were saying, it's like, oh, I just love DJ ABC's music. I'm like, oh, really? What's your favorite song? Couldn't name one. It's like, oh, that's okay. Hum one of them to me. Hum the hook to your favorite one of his songs, and name it for you. It's like, it's like, yeah, you don't know any of their music. You just know that they make music. So, yeah, it's weird. That was a weird transition, and it's even more prevalent today that DJs that are strictly DJs, highly skilled DJs, aren't in as much demand as the artists. And I've harped on this in the past 2 interviews that we did, that, like, we've switched completely from club culture to concert culture.
Okay.
And
I'm wholeheartedly agreeing with you. That has happened. It's happened.
Yes, finally. Good. Yes, I think we clashed on that before, but
no.
So from that point,
we didn't clash on. We clashed on the ideas of curation. This wasn't. And listen, let's not call it clash, because here we are. I would have never said come back on the
disagreed.
Show. We had a debate, all right, and I enjoyed it with you, and we're still in our own positions. And despite that, yeah. I obviously want to have you back on the show. It's not like I'm afraid of these debates with you. And
I know.
And not just that. I also, well, when I say, I don't mean like afraid. Maybe this is the wrong word. There's no concern that you and I are going to open up a can of worms upon each other that can't be closed afterwards, and say something that's so terribly harsh that as if to say I'm shitting on your opinion. Fuck your opinion and everything that you believe in, right? Like, that's not what I'm saying. I'm just saying I don't think you're right, and then you looked at me and said, I don't think you're right. And then one of the things that we did say to each other on the episode that is no longer was that maybe we're both right, and that maybe we're both wrong, and that the very idea of, because we did talk about working with friends and the challenges of working with friends. And that the friends that you should work with are the ones that you don't agree with, the ones that you can state, and this is why I believe, this is totally behind the scenes now. I mean, like, this is almost like a phone conversation. You and I rarely agree. Okay, but here we are, almost 2.5 decades later that I've known you. I believe you played a massive role in my explosion in Toronto and across Canada. No one was really listening to my mixtapes until you reviewed it in Tribe and went something like, "Holy fuck, this is amazing! Who the fuck is this guy? Where did he come from?" And then you gave me tape of the month, and then did it again. And then, like 3 months later, I put out another tape or something, and you gave me tape of the month again. You're like, "This is no coincidence. This is it." And then after that, my bookings, really started, happening. So, thank you. Also, the role of the mixtape and how fucking important it was, and it wasn't just about how the music was laid out upon it or arranged, but also how it was mechanically assembled. This art form that you're discussing right now had a form of relevance then. But the idea, because of the concert culture, that has now enveloped all of it.
Mm-hmm.
This is happening. I'll tell you what. I just had Ghetto Blaster on the show. Ghetto Blaster said, "I wouldn't want to be DJing and have someone dancing on the floor and go, 'Oh my God, I love this song. I don't know who the DJ is. I'm having a great time. I'm going to Shazam it right now so I can get a hold of it.'" And then he said, "They're Shazamming and it's not even me. So, like, why am I up there? Like, what's even really happening?" I'll tell you what, I'm not giving it in verbatim. Go check out the Ghetto Blaster episode, because then you can see the exact quote. But the idea.
No, I understand. Hold on. I understand that sentiment. So I completely understand that sentiment. But then there's the hashtag real DJ movement, where the DJs, the DJs would be happy with that, because their goal in life is to share music. I'm exposing that person who is Shazamming on the dance floor to a song that they've never heard before. That's my job as a DJ. I make you dance, expose new music.
Then what's the job of the playlist?
So it's really a matter of perspective.
What's the job of the playlist?
It's exactly that. It's exposing new music.
So then what's the point of
creating,
the DJ?
Well, to show new music. There's so much music out there every day.
They need to work hand in hand.
And that's the other thing. You have to, yeah. So you also have to consider that the average person, the civilian, the normal person that's not living this life, is not digging through 100,000 releases a week. They're hearing, in most cases, they're hearing what is fed to them by
100%.
I guess it's not radio anymore, by randomized Spotify playlists or whatever. No, that's how they discover.
I'm not sure how many humans are left on Earth that are actually picking their own music now. The algorithm feed is just absolutely powerful. And
honestly, they never have. It's been fed through radio, and that's why there was such a big marketing pushes through radio. But the playlist has the same significance as a DJ set, in that if I compiled a playlist, I am exposing you to music that I, as a DJ, which is my job, to sort through this music for you, I have curated this list for you to enjoy. You'll go into a rabbit hole and find even more music from that one playlist. That's the point of it. But to the point that we were getting to, the transition of DJs to artists, I remember specifically when that really started to have a really weird impact, because a lot of the artists that we were bringing in, we as in the collective promoters, they were also DJs. So, guys like Crafty Cuts and Soul of Man, and just speaking from my own experience, the people that I were bringing in that was making the music were also good DJs. Yeah. But then I guess the world ran out of good DJs that made music, and they started to bring in the producers. And the producers that had realized or clicked, if I want to make more money, I better learn how to DJ. So people that have been DJing less than a year are getting headlining bookings and headlining tours around the world because they made some popular music. But they're expected to do a DJ set, but they've just learned how to DJ, and it's awful.
Okay, so what
So
you're talking
you
about right now
lost.
is this is
Wait,
this is fascinating. All right, come
not
on.
done yet.
No
Nope, nope,
apologies.
nope.
Go ahead. I don't
Stop.
mean to
Not
interrupt
done.
you. I really don't. I'm just excited by what you're saying.
It's okay.
Yep,
I
cool.
just want to get this thought out, and and I
Get it
think I
out,
know where you're going to
baby.
go.
I
But hold on.
want to hear it,
So,
obviously.
so, so what ended up happening is you started getting all of these bookings from people, like I said, that just started DJing, but they were making good music. So yes, you were hearing good music, but the progression of the sets was like hideous, like jukebox DJing. I'm going to play this song, and then I'm going to play this song, and then I'm going to play. There was no thought, there was no craftsmanship, and that's for me at least. That's where things really just went hard over to concert culture because people came out to see these people and they seem to be okay with it. It's like a thing it's a thing that happens to you on a dance floor that you don't realize that is happening, but it's happening. Like a well-crafted set, like a set that where the DJ takes you on a journey, starts at one point, ends at another point, invokes a bunch of emotion. Other things like lights. I'm a big fan of lights. You don't go to a party because the lights are amazing, but good lights make a difference. It's one of those like psychological things. But at the end of the day, when these producers started to come over and start like taking these headlining slots away from more, lack of a better word, more deserving performers, that's when it really clicked. Like, oh, okay, this is where we're at now. We have to make music or do something other than just being DJs in order to maintain some relevance. And I remember the day one of the biggest ones was Meet Katie, who I love, makes like amazing music, always has. I met him at a party in Calgary, and this was the year that he just started DJing. He had been making music for years, and it's all been good. But like I said, like a lot of producers had to get out and start making music. So you know, no disrespect, Mark, if you're listening to this, but like those first couple sets were not very good. But in the future times, like the more you do something, obviously, the better you get at it. Like the set that I heard in Calgary, great music, not great DJing, but the music was great. And then he came to Toronto and played at System on a Friday night, packed club, and same thing, amazing music, not the best DJing. But then the third time I heard him, and like a year later, he was amazing. So, in that time, he learned how to DJ, but he was booked solely because he made the music, and DJing was the delivery system to get the music out there. And that's when it really clicked. And the same thing with like there's a bunch of other acts that came over, exactly the same thing. They made amazing music, couldn't DJ to save their lives. And eventually, after going around the globe a couple times, they got better through, I guess, baptism by fire, just being put in front of large crowds, and just learning. So that's really where that's when it really clicked. Like, I have to do something, and it's not going to be making music. So what's it going to be? Record label.
You unpacked a bunch of stuff. I had to make notes while it was going on because I didn't want to forget anything that you were saying. I really enjoyed the idea of what you talked about with DJing, producing, touring, and the delivery system. Essentially, becoming touring DJs are essentially radio satellites, and they're broadcasting their station for that moment. That's what I'm getting. I think
Yeah.
that's yes, and it's
Well, also keep in mind that DJ sets are significantly cheaper than live PAs.
okay.
A DJ, especially in that time, it was all CDs for the most part, and you could just show up with a CD wallet and a pair of headphones, and you're good. As opposed to transporting samplers and keyboards and computers. So as far as that's because prior to that, if you were doing a live PA, you were bringing gear, and do you think flying with records is a pain in the ass? Try flying with like keyboards. So yeah, so that opened up a huge market, to the producers of the world, fine. And that's it's still translates to today. If you look at every big festival lineup, it's all people that make music, but they're DJing as opposed to performing that music live.
Okay.
Epic air quotes around DJing.
And I'm happy we did this because earlier we were able to get together on the phone for a moment, and I said some stuff to you. I talked about obviously how I felt terrible about the episode not being recorded, and that I was going to not do the same episode with you, but I was going to somehow carry on the conversation with you in a way that still felt fresh. And I'm happy you just said everything you just said, because it allows me to segue into the idea of evolution and sustainability. And so when we were talking about you starting the record label, and we can go into that obviously, and the things that didn't go right when you were doing it, your reflection now on what it was, the steps that you made that you thought that were incorrect steps to make at that time, and what you may have done differently today. How the idea of running a record label, the passion for it to go ahead and put the music together in format, like you mentioned, the record in the background behind you, the Pure Funk record, and how the sleeve was a certain grading, the art was a certain design, and that the actual vinyl pressing itself was of a greater quality than just a whatever pressing of vinyl. I'm thinking about the evolution and what you were just talking about before. I'm going to wrap this all up. The evolution, when we first started, and I'm saying we because we stand on the shoulders of those who were before us. And those who are there now are standing upon ours. And
Yep.
the earliest forms of DJing house music on the dance floor, there were attempts to mix because the technology wasn't in a place of where it made it as seamlessly possible as today. Or yesterday as well with the Technique 1200 direct drive system. Earliest forms of DJing happened on reel-to-reel cassette, I guess, if you will. Earliest forms of house music, warehouse dance music, post-disco. It started on vinyl and reel-to-reel. Vinyl didn't really take off as the delivery format, as the strongest delivery format with the Technique, until the direct drive system was introduced. And therein also the scratch and the hip hop culture really did explode from that. And from that, house music and rave. Disco had to die first for all of this to happen. And the resurrection is certainly quite strong today. I'm talking about this evolution because you were talking.
Well, I would say it evolved. It didn't die. It evolved.
Disco never died. I agree with you. I was just saying it to be funny because, this is the duck statement that would be made, right? We're burning records in Wrigley Field. So
it's true.
So the earliest forms of delivery system didn't have any technicality. In fact, the whole idea of the delivery was based upon the curation that happened behind the scenes. And then the delivery of that curation in actuality, and perhaps the arrangement of the delivery. So what songs I would play and in what order. And that the transitions, I would imagine, because I don't have any real video or audio recording of this stuff. So it's just read recollection from what it is that I've read. We're talking about very, very, very quick, very fast transitions. 1 steamboat second or less. Artists, performers trying to time the bridges of tracks. No, obviously this is still happening today. I'm not saying, well, yeah, we do that still. Be like, sure, but there was no sync, and beat matching wasn't really apparent.
Right.
This became developed from it, and when obviously the direct drive system was introduced, this obviously opened up a whole new realm of possibilities for the DJ, and the acronym disc jockey. As a quick jab and funny, when I moved to digital and I first started playing off of my MacBook, I had a hard drive, not a solid state drive, and I used to joke the only thing that I'm spinning these days is my hard drive.
Well, you were a hard disk jockey.
I was an HDJ. That's right. And now I
Yeah.
guess an SDJ or so. Actually, the SSDJ, I guess, right? That sounds like a boat. The SSDJ. The evolution transformed into obviously all kinds of technical abilities. This is the stuff that you and I witnessed. It's the shoulders now for sure that we were standing on. We were watching DJ show up, and they were matching. I always surprise people when I tell they're like, well, who is the first person that you really like? Whoa, should you listen to the mix and be like, I want to do what that's happening? My answer is Sasha. When I first heard the Renaissance mix, and also I believe it was Up Your Ronson, I thought to myself, holy shit, this is going on 2, 3 minutes. It felt like some of these mixes, and it was very smooth. And the idea that the pitch control was being ridden, RID, not like being rid of it, but like some riding it. And it wasn't. There was you can literally hear. I can at least, and maybe not everybody else, but I can hear when the sticker is being manipulated to try and catch up to the speed. I can hear the finger touch on the vinyl, right? And sometimes because the vinyl and the toner, I can actually hear the finger onto it, depending on how heavy the performer is being with the vinyl at that time. I never heard that from Sasha, and I always thought to myself, if I can mix as smooth as that, that's gonna be fucking great. And then I heard Bad Boy Bill, and I was like, if I can mix as fast as that, that's gonna be fucking even greater. It's why I got out of progressive house.
Yep.
I stand there for 5 minutes waiting for the record to get to that mixing point. So they're like, well, you should try and find creative stuff to do during. I'm like, it's music though. And it's weird to go ahead and try and do some stuff over music when you want to hear the music. And I'm like, I'd rather play records that are more like tools and then try and make my own shit while it's actually happening right in front of you. That way, there's something going on instead of just me going, I'm playing music and for 5 minutes and then waiting. And listen, I'm not knocking it. There's sometimes I actually really love that vibe too. I'm bringing this up because of what you said. Moving on today, as you said, there's performers with absolutely zero experience, perhaps not a ton of exposure to the culture of its history, unaware of the timeline that I just presented to you right now. And yeah, all of a sudden, after a hit single, upon a stage, before 15, 20,000 people. I can't say whether this is right or wrong. And I can't say whether or not it's a disrespect to the culture. On a previous episode, I talked about this. I said, man, you would never see Taylor Swift walk out onto a stage at a packed stadium, walk over to a player, raise her arms up, and, woo, y'all with me, having a good time tonight, and press play and just stand there and go like this over her songs. You'd never see it. It wouldn't be respected. But in our industry,
No. Well, yeah. Okay. So a couple things there.
let's go.
So to the point that I made previously was that it used to be back in the day that like if you were doing a live PA, and we've seen many live PAs over the years, that you had to cart equipment around. At the end of the day, it's electronic music, and even now, it's made with less and less outboard gear. There are the outliers, but for the most part, it's Ableton or Logic or other whatever.
FL, come on, baby.
But like how sure, but like to see that performed live on a stage is boring. But ultimately, like I said, the DJing is, especially today, is just a delivery system of your own music, and now you can just show up with a USB key. Do a lot of these newer artists are they disrespecting the culture? To a point, not really though, because like I said, the culture's gone so hard over to concert culture. They're not. They're not. They are saying that they're DJs, but they're not really. And any DJ knows that they're not. So it's at the end of the day, no. The only downside to that though is that the new people coming into the scene now think that is DJing, and it's while technically it is, there are better examples of it. But now everything has changed to the point where it's not just about showing up and playing your music. You have to jump around. You have to get on the mic. You have to have pyrotechnics. You have to have a crazy LED screen. Back in our day, I needed 2 turntables and enough light that I can see, and that was enough.
What was enough? The setup or the music?
Yeah, because all that mattered was the music. But now, because to your point, to your Taylor Swift example, Taylor Swift is a performer, so she goes out on stage and performs. She puts on a show, but putting these artists behind 2 decks, whatever they are, there's only so much you can do for a performance. That's hence the jumping around and jumping up on tables and stuff like that. That's their performance.
I mean,
The
we're
music
talking
isn't enough.
just a certain group of people right now, right? We're not being generalized. I mean, have you seen Craze's new
I'm talking
routine?
about pretty much every festival headliner is
I
who I'm
mean,
talking about.
I can't say that either. I mean, have you seen DOD? Have you seen Laid Back Luke? I mean, like these are festival headliners. Their
Those are
skills are
anomalies now. Like,
that's
yes,
not
like Layback
okay.
Luke is an outstanding DJ, but I'm talking
Ridiculous.
like the Skrillexes, the Diplos, the Dylan Francises, the Zeds, the everybody else, like
To
the
be
people that
honest,
are actually headlining the
to
big
be
shows.
fair, I haven't heard any of those artist sets in. I haven't heard any of those artist sets in a long time. I have no idea where their skill set's at. I have heard their music. I've heard the last 2 singles from
So
Skrillex.
just basic, and
What?
you know
No, the
what's
last 2 singles
and
from
like and
Skrillex.
to the point.
Amazing, dude.
What was
The
that?
last 2 Skrillex, yeah. Oh my, ridiculous.
Yeah.
Like,
So yeah, but that's the thing. That's the switch. Are we talking DJ skills? Or are we talking production skills? Like they
so
all make great music, but I remember actually I'll give you a story because the guy doesn't matter anymore. I remember I was
holy
handling a
fuck.
show. I was handling a show for Destiny um, at the government where we had Datsyuk playing, and
Okay.
yeah, it was a fairly busy show. It was in the main room, and I remember he was just about to come on. He comes out with his him and his tour manager, and I'm like, okay, so you're going on at 12:30. You'll play 90 minutes. He's like, no, I won't. I'll play 72 minutes. Like, what? Like, we have you on the schedule from 12:30 till 2. Like, nope, 72 minutes and I'm done. Like, that's a weird number.
I don't get it.
And then when he sets up, yeah, I'll tell you. When he set up, he had his entire set in Ableton. He just literally pressed play, and the set played, and he would just EQ, jump around, get on the mic. Like his set was timed out to 72 minutes.
What? Why was there a reason for
So
it, or did you ever discover what?
that's just how that's how he performs. And
I
there's
hate that
a
we're
lot of them
talking
that
about
do
this
similar.
person right now. Can we let's I understand the relevance of it. We got to
Yeah,
move
that's what
on.
I mean. He doesn't matter anymore. But the point is that a lot of them do that. A lot of them pre-record. A lot of them have like all of their songs at the same BPM, so they don't have to touch the pitch control. They just have to press start. Like it's it hurts to see from like another DJ's perspective. But it is what it is. Like I can't change it. You're not going to change it. Nobody's going to. That's when people like
Oh,
you and I appreciate the real DJs, like the Layback Lukes and those DJs of the world. So
Dan,
yeah,
I
it
have
is
gone
what
off
it
to
is.
sets recently where I found that the mixing was not super strong. I felt, sometimes I because of my own feelings. If I see someone standing there for 5 minutes and then the song's just playing, and it happens for like 3-4 songs in a row, I'm showing heels because I'm just like I can listen in the car. Like I don't need to be here for that. Like so I felt like sometimes
Hmm.
a part of me was like, it's good enough that I'm in the venue. It doesn't matter what the venue looks like. I can just close my eyes. The music's really loud, and I'm surrounded by energy, and that's all I need. But
Hmm.
if I do open my eyes, and if there's a scratch routine happening, or if there's a really cool, some cool fader drops or some juggles, I'm gonna want to look up and see what's happening. And so if I look up and see that, well,
Yeah,
nothing's happening, then I'm just like, Okay, I guess I'll check
Yeah,
out too then, because
I'm standing on a table saying 1, 2, 3, jump, yay, and then the
okay,
next guy does exactly the same thing,
so
yay. Like,
so
but
so
anyway,
here so here I
let's not
go.
get
Here
into
I go.
that. That gets boring.
I've listened to what you're saying, and I hear what you're saying right now, and this is what I was going to say to you, or it's really a question:
Mhm.
is the audience wrong?
No,
Because they're going off
no,
to one,
absolutely
two,
not.
three, jump, right?
So
I open the video, I see the
right,
video,
but
just like you, one,
that
two,
was
three,
a
jump up on the stage, waving arms, looking like they're either refereeing a soccer game or landing an airplane. And and yes, 1, 2, 3, jump. The audience is very explosive when it happens. 50,000 people are jumping and they're following along. So who's right and who's wrong?
yeah, but
Are we
this was a
just two fuckers on the
long.
internet right now talking about how things have changed and it's not great? Because I'm not saying that actually. I mean, and I don't think that you are either. I'm just
No, I'm not saying that either. I'm
yeah,
To be clear, I'm not saying that either. Like
no.
today's scene is what it is. Um, you hear a lot of us old folk saying how much better it was back in the good days, the good old days, because it was. But that's not to say that today's scene isn't great for the people that it's intended for. Today's scene is not intended for us. It is intended for them. And they seem to like to get in. That's their scene.
So when we
We can
talk
only
about the
really
scene, what we're
be
really
be a
talking
part of it.
about, when we talk about the scene, what we're really talking about are the big marketed events that are up front in our face, that are relevant with a superstar headliner that's probably got 100 million plays on Spotify, and that's what we're talking about, right?
Hmm.
That's what you're talking. But there's tons of stuff that's still going on that might not have that giant flyer and might be in a warehouse, ram 500 people into this warehouse room and going off with music that perhaps we're not
Yeah,
really aware of, right?
but
This is a thing. I've talked about this
but
before. Dan, we're not being invited to it. And one of the reasons might be because,
but
because of who you are and who I am. Sorry. Go ahead.
those people got introduced to that most likely from those big mega festivals. So the way I see the current scene now is that those big mega festivals are the gateway. So they come in, they're getting down, they're jumping, they're doing all of that crazy shit, and then eventually it gets boring, but they don't want to leave. They want to explore, they want to do new things, so they branch out. Some of them go to more established house and techno clubs. Some of them go to more like underground stuff. Some of them go to more popular other stuff. But those big festivals now, I can't knock them because that's what is currently bringing the people in. So yeah, there's a ton of other scenes out there, but the way that people find those for the most part, like the vast majority, they came in through that giant gateway.
I agree with you.
So I can't really knock
You're
that.
probably right.
It was a weird there was a weird switch. It was a very long gradual switch where raves had always been happening, but then as they started to turn very concerty, um, and people started getting like these bigger and bigger names, all of a sudden somebody somewhere is like has this song on their iPod and they're like, oh yeah, I just downloaded this from LimeWire or whatever, and I saw his name on a poster. I want to go see that. It just happens to be at a rave, and then there's that transition, and then dubstep and Skrillex happened, and then brought all these concert people over into the raves, and then that's just sort of where it all mashed up, and now we have what we have. So it is. I'm a student of this business, and I've
No,
been watching it for a
there's
long
there's
time, and
no
I
doubt.
can sort of
Yeah,
pinpoint.
your insight is phenomenal. So I love listening to it, and obviously it's great to have the
And
debate. Like
like I said, especially from a marketing perspective, these festivals are an excellent delivery system for the music because the festival can set up the staging, and then these guys show up with their USB keys and they play all of their same songs over and over again, and then they pull out their key and they leave. And all the promoter needed to pay for was that person to show up with their key, as opposed to actual performers that show up with giant semis full of staging. Now those events do happen as well, but not nearly as much. But like, if you get like a Taylor Swift or a Jay-Z or something, like they're rolling in with staging, not just plug and play performers. So, that's just where it is now. So DJing, or playing on this type of equipment, is just the easiest and most cost-effective delivery system for the music.
So this is a fantastic representation on operation, cost of operation, idea of profit margin. Great. What the fuck does that have to do with art?
Very little.
So who
it depends on your perspective. It depends on your definition of art.
Oh,
so
don't do that.
There's now keeping in mind that from like, if we're going to talk big festivals, there's a ton of art. There's the visuals that went on those screens. There's the lighting design. There's stage design. There's lots of art that goes into that, and that's good. And the music, for the most part, there is some art in there. Most of it's just generic cookie cutter garbage, but there is some legitimate music being made in there, and that's good. That stuff stands out. So yeah, there's lots of art all over the place. So depends on what art you're talking about.
Can you imagine?
If you're just talking about the music.
So listen, in any let's use this idea, the model that you've just gone ahead and outlined. The idea, okay, well, it's it's effective cost to go and do it. I only need this system set up, and that the main ingredient really just needs to turn up with data upon a small mini hard drive, and it's all going to be okay. All right.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think that if you got up on the internet as the biggest promoter, Toronto Super Rave Jam 5,000 at the Rogers Center, tickets are $5, so everyone's coming. But if you stood up and you said that in a video description that opened up, for example, the website, and then the flyer drops after you just said what you said, do you think a lot of people would be interested in going to this event?
No, that's pretty basic.
So
you need to you would need to. There need to be more information.
I think it sounds a little discouraging.
Like that's not enough.
It's not only is it not enough. I mean, like it just sounds the antithesis of excitement. Really, I think I may get more joy reading an IBM spreadsheet than I would going ahead and doing whatever the fuck it is that you just described. And I'll if the promoters are thinking that way, then the audience is getting cheated. They're getting cheated from an experience in a form of music and presentation that they're unaware of by displaying something, being told it's great, and it's not. And then you're right. What you said earlier in the show, this is what the exposure is, so this is what the audience thinks it is, and then it lives and dies as this idea.
So there's a different, well, I guess if we're still going to be talking about big mega festivals, then most of those big festivals don't make money on the first year. They're loss leaders for the next year. So like guys, and obviously the first name that comes to mind is EDC. They built the experience, and that's really what they're selling. Festivals these days are less about the music; they're more about the experience. It's an experience with music. So what they ended up doing was they built this amazing experience. They convinced as many people as possible to come. Many of them in that case based on music, and then the word of mouth of that amazing experience spread to the next year. And then it just kept building and building and building on that. So it was just a lot of word of mouth. It's like, oh my God. And then, of course, after doing that first year, they had more than enough photos and videos so that the next year they can say, this is what it looks like. This is what you're paying for. Come check it out. And then you're like, oh, I see that. That looks great. I'm going to go and check that out. And then just it snowballs after that. So then now other newer promoters can come in and say, oh, we're going to do something like EDC, or we're going to do something like Ultra. And I'm like, oh, I know what that is. I'm going to go over there. So, it's good that there were people that had the foresight enough to take that big risk, take that big loss up front to build something bigger. So actually, if I really wanted to think about it, I would say that I think Ultra was first, because over decades, the Winter Music Conference had built a massive following of a combination of music people and people that were there for the music. And then Ultra just got bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger over the years. And then people just started equating big festivals with Ultra. And then EDC showed up and did it better. So, yeah, festivals.
After our talk a few days ago, I was wondering if you'd put any thought into what I recommended. Would you
What?
the playlist? I had the question. I asked you, why would you stop doing the record label? And you told me outright that your passion is not there, but it's still there as a DJ. I said to you that running a record label is potentially the ultimate DJ position, because you're picking music that you, especially if you're the A&R record label, and you're picking music that you think should be inside people's boxes, in their heads, in their ears. That's what the job is, right?
Yeah.
Obviously, you want the record to be
No,
explosive,
absolutely. And that's
right.
And that's the point. Well, that was the progression that I took. So ultimately, when I decided that I didn't want to make music, running a record label was just an extension of what I was already doing. I was already essentially a taste maker, I guess, for lack of a better word, by being the buyer at Eastern Bloc, and then later at To The Beat, bringing in all of like the best breaks from around the world into the store to give to the DJs. I was delivering that music also on the dance floors, but then I noticed that there was a lot of new emerging Canadian talent, and as a patriotic person, I wanted to push that talent because it wasn't getting pushed. So, in lieu of making music myself, that seemed like the perfect natural transition to do, like, for the next thing to do, was to continue pushing the music in a different way to the world, not just Toronto. And I think for listeners' sake, because we've obviously been through this before, I should probably tell the story, especially like shouting out the artists that were on it. So there was a lot of once you became that person, like I had the radio show, I was throwing the parties, I was playing the parties, I was doing a lot of stuff. I started getting a lot of demos. People started sending me stuff, and there was actually some really good stuff out there. Like there were a lot of producers in their bedrooms, just artists, not DJs, that were making music and not getting any feedback from anybody, because obviously a lot of people that just get hammered with demos all the time. So that it really just clicked for me. Is like, okay, A, I'm going to do a label that's going to push the music to the world. B, I'm only going to do Canadian artists. I'm only going to focus on Canadian breakbeat artists. In retrospect, that sort of limited me, because I'm like a niche label in a niche genre, in a super niche, I just niche. I was like so super hyper focused. I think I really painted myself into a corner there. But at the end of the day, like
I like the idea,
I was
though.
just
The idea
bubbling
is
over
it's
with
very
passion and
heartwarming.
optimism.
It's a heartwarming idea.
Yeah, and it's I was like I said, just overflowing with passion and just drive, unrelenting drive at the time. So yeah, everything just started clicking. Label made sense. I'm going to push this sound. I'm going to push Canadian content. Let's do it. So once we started to do that, and I started the label with a friend of mine at the time, I was just really excited to do something, and he just offers like, yeah, I'll help you out with that. Let's do it together. I'm like, fantastic. Let's and this goes back to your comment earlier as a lesson that I learned, some foreshadowing. Even though all my friends told me not to do it, and I just didn't listen to them because I was pig-headed and arrogant. Just don't go into business with your friends. But I did, and it was fine for a while. So we started up the label. And as I was telling you the last time, that I had this really unhealthy obsession with quality. And something that I learned after the fact is it didn't need to be the best. It just needed to be good. And people wouldn't have difference, but I would have noticed the difference. And I just had these ridiculous quality standards. Even though we were starting from scratch. We were starting from absolute zero. And we were building from nothing, but I had to have the best of everything. We had the best mastering, we had the best plates, we had the best pressing, we had sleeve art, which was rare back in the day, just to make it pop off the shelves, which it totally did. Just look at it; it's beautiful. And yeah, we just had to have the absolute best of everything. At the end of the day, it just needed to be good. It didn't have to be the best. And to make it even crazier is that we manufactured everything in England. Our distributor was based in England. Most of the interest that we had garnered was in Europe. So it just made sense to produce over there, sell there, and then as a psychological thing, when the record comes back to North America, it's an import, which makes it cooler. And it's true. Like this goes back to that Canadian psychology where people will look elsewhere before they look internally. We would market ourselves as a Canadian label, but when the random person that didn't see the marketing would see it in the stores, they would see the price. It's like, oh, it's an import. I'm gonna check it out, and it obviously popped off the shelf, which I love.
You don't think it's still that way today, do you?
So, no, it doesn't matter. Everything's the same price.
I meant that you need to come from outside Toronto or Canada right now to get people excited.
Oh, 1,000%.
You think it's still the same?
Anybody in any entertainment sector will tell you that.
Really?
Oh, without question, without hesitation.
Even after Drake,
and I'll tell you, I won't get too deep into it.
Bieber and Deadmau5 and
where does? Yeah, no, you've just named 3 people.
I'll keep going, brother.
That's it. They're the anomalies.
No.
But
okay.
But at the end of the day, all entertainment sectors. Just as an aside, because I'm nightlife is in my blood. Over the past 6 years, I've been producing comedy shows, as well, stand-up comedy shows. And the one thing that I learned in that, like same thing with entertainment, is people do not care about Canadian comics as much as they care about American comics. Our comics, for the most part, are as good or better. But
you'd have this opinion. I'm
an American comic coming to a comedy club, it's a fact. I can prove it multiple times over.
That Canadian comics are funnier than American comics?
Absolutely. And the reason that you're questioning that is because you probably have not gone to a local Canadian comedy club.
You're right. I haven't been to a comedy show in
lineup.
Yeah, since I don't know.
But if like an Ali Wong comes to the city or some other name that you saw on Netflix, you'd go to that.
You're right.
But
I wouldn't go to the Jim Jeffries show,
even though
3
it's
years
probably
ago or something. I went and actually,
but digression. So say it's exactly the same thing in music. It's exactly the same thing in film. It's exactly the same thing in Canada. That Canadians and the gatekeepers behind the scenes will always favor foreign content before they look at ourselves internally. Anybody that has needed or wanted to make it in whatever business has had to leave. And a perfect example of that, if you want to stay strictly in electronic music, is Rene LeVice. Like, Rene has done an amazing job, but as great as he is as a person, as a character, And as great as his music is, the fact that he moved to England made it so much easier for him to blow up. And now he's a host on Radio 1. Like, he's got a radio show on Radio 1. He tours when there is touring, tours relentlessly. Like, good for him. And he's from Toronto. But there's so many other examples of that where there is raw, pure talent here, but it'll never get recognized unless they leave. Facts.
Opinions.
Nope.
You know,
Absolute fact.
I mean, again, I feel like what you're doing is you're working off of a model, a music industry.
I'm working off of experience.
I know I'm not talking about your experience. I'm just saying.
So let me say one more thing. And actually, I know that this doesn't apply to you specifically, but applies to everybody else. For all sorts of entertainment, as a Canadian, you cannot perform in the States. You cannot perform in the biggest market in North America because you're not from there. In order to get a permit to work there, you have to fill out volumes and volumes of paperwork and spend tens of thousands of dollars to get a piece of paper that says that you are more valuable than an American and you're not going to take an American's job. And whereas on the flip side, if an American in any entertainment genre wants to come and perform in Canada, they show up at the border and maybe pay $100. In most cases these days, no. They just walk across the border. So it's impossible for Canadians to thrive in North America because Canada only has 3 major markets. Well, barely. So whereas in the States, there's, 10 major markets and a ton of B-level markets. So the deck is stacked against Canadians. You have to.
The population is nearly 11 times greater than Canada. I mean, like it's so
exactly. But we can't. Sorry, not you. The rest of us can't perform there.
I heard it's not that challenging actually today. I heard it's gotten a lot easier.
It's beyond challenging.
Right now?
Nope. It's actually gotten worse.
Really?
Yeah, it's gotten worse. Yeah, they tried to. There was and I know this specifically from the comedy side,
right?
Because our comedians are struggling because they can't cross the border to perform
right now. Especially if some of our viewers are like, "Wait, what fucking comedy is that?" D-Monic actually has moved. Well, it's not necessarily moved. I mean, both things are happening at the same time. It's kind of a lateral move, if you will, because it's still entertainment. Has been hosting comedy shows across Toronto at various venues and bringing in some of the old classic wrestling stars who are now doing a form of storytelling and stand-up. He's had Jake the Snake Roberts. I can't remember who else you've had.
$1 Million Man.
There you go. That's the
Ricky
Ted
the Dragon
DiBiase,
Steamboat, $1 Million Man, Mouth of the South, Jimmy Hart, Tito Santana.
I had all those
but
action
anyway,
figures.
let's not get too deep into that. I'm on a train of thought here. So the point is that, just a friend of mine and my partner in these comedy shows has tried to get a permit to go to the States. And you need to get a lawyer. You need to literally, I forget what the technical term was, but you need to have a mountain of press clippings, like actual articles written about you, to prove to U.S. immigration that you have, I think it's called extraordinary ability.
I heard that this went away. I heard that this transformed into something simpler.
No. I wish it did. It got worse.
All right.
But no, it's exactly the same as it's always been. So the only people that have been able to make that work are like megastars that blew up through some type of virality, where it made sense to pay that $10,000+ to get the lawyer, to get the thing, to get the paperwork to go, or people that had dual citizenship, where they could cross the border freely. And there's been a few people like that, but from the average person that's looking to get their foothold in entertainment, you need a team behind you to get you into the biggest market in North America. So you cannot. Canadians are at a disadvantage from the start.
It's interesting that you're bringing that up right now. I'm interested, if you were a Canadian artist right now, knowing what that business. Cause I brought it up now a few times while you were talking what you were saying, and I was interrupting you. I was saying that that this model that you're referencing is a music business model. This music business model that has been laid out and generated from the big record labels. All right, and obviously big publishers as well. So and I'm assuming that both things are firing at the same time and setting up an idea of what it is that performers and artists are supposed to follow, so that they can be part of whatever that gravy train is. What happens if you're not interested in that mold? Is this mold the only path? Is that the only path that an artist in Canada, and we're being specific, obviously, could find a form of success?
By going elsewhere?
Listen,
it depends.
I'll tell you
it
what.
depends on your. It depends on your definition of success.
That's
so making a living off of music. Yeah, so making a living off of music is like you would have it a million times easier living in the States than you would here.
Back in 2015, times. I was on a rather big tour across North America. During that time, obviously, all kinds of different conversations and stuff. One of the conversations I ended up having with the tour manager at the time was how lucky. By the way, this tour manager was based in America, lived in the United States, and was versed in some of the mechanics of the Canadian music industry, including the federal support for it. Institutions such as SOCAN, and as well as many of the federal grant opportunities that are available for the arts here in Canada, coast to coast. Whether it's music, film, TV, print, etc., painting. I mean, there is a form of support, for a federal form of support. I'm not going to suggest right now, and to be honest, I'm unaware of all the grants, so I wouldn't go ahead and start talking about the specific mechanics of each of those grants. But what I will say is that they exist, and that the tour manager was quite blunt with me. Is like how lucky we were in Canada as artists to have this system before us, because it didn't exist in the United States. What do you think about that?
You really want to know?
I was waiting for it all episode long. There's the sigh. Okay. There we go. Yo, and a growl.
All right, listeners, buckle up. More education for you.
Oof.
So,
more opinions.
Yes, Canada cares more about the arts than the States does. The States is very independent, very me versus we. So Canada does care more about the arts, and there's more arts funding. However, there is an actual job title in Canada called grant writers. Their full-time job is applying for grants, because applying for grants is impossible. It's paperwork after paperwork after paperwork after paperwork. It's a bureaucratic nightmare. So, is there money available? Absolutely. Is it accessible by the common person? Hell no.
Well, why would it be?
Give you
Can you
some
imagine dangling a carrot that anybody would have access to?
No, I know. But the whole point of that arts funding is to fund the arts. To give you like a gross misuse of that, because it's so difficult to get grant funding because of the bureaucracy. Only the big companies can afford to hire somebody to specifically write grant proposals. And one of the most outlandish things I've ever heard is that one of the biggest recipient of Canadian arts funding is the OVO festival put on by Drake. It's a sold-out multi-day concert that features predominantly American artists that gets hundreds of thousands of dollars in grant money. So yeah, cool. We fund our grants, or we fund our arts better than Americans, but
How many people go to the
do we
OVO
see
Fest?
it?
How many people go? How many people go?
Oh, it's packed. It's
Okay, so
no. So it's a tourist play, if anything.
okay.
But on the flip side of that, the money the intention of that money was meant for artists, not
If
for
if you
corporate
believed
music
in a form of
festivals.
trickle down economics, which I'm sorry, if you, if you believed in that, then wouldn't this make sense that this type of drop would create the rings, and that those rings are the ones that are being creative and doing stuff that, I mean, we look. It's what you just said. I mean, I'm going off of what you were talking about before. That the gateway to these.
Drake does not need any more money. There's like you need to have there needs to be some common sense in that model of, and that's the one that drives me the most crazy. There's many other examples of that, but like a show that would sell out and be extremely profitable on its own does not need tax.
Okay,
That
so
money, that arts money, is better spent elsewhere.
you know what, I don't think you're wrong.
But the only reason they got it is because they have full-time grant writers.
Okay, okay, okay. If that's the game, then why then shouldn't the goal be for everyone that's not that fest to also get the grant writers that are going at it to make that shit happen too? I mean, if that's the game,
There's a lot of companies that
you
have
can't
grant
just look
writers.
at the rules and hate it. Like, where's the effort on our end to make that shit happen
no, absolutely
too?
not.
Right, yeah.
But you brought this up as a point of envy of Americans,
So here's where
whereas
I was trying to go
we
with. I
have
was
more
trying to
to
go
envy about them.
because and so here it is. Now I'm gonna flip on the other side. If I didn't sit on both sides of the fence, I'd probably be a garbage host, and maybe I am altogether. But that's up to somebody else. What I would say is this: is that you talked about how, for example, the really big parties are the gateways to going to those other niche events that we are not being invited to.
Mm-hmm.
And so wouldn't the same be said then for this fest that you're talking about right now? And that wouldn't it be worthwhile?
OVO that
Wouldn't
plays
it be?
radio music.
Listen, just because it's not for us doesn't mean that it's not, right? So I mean, to be honest, I don't know who performs it at this fest. I OVO or whatever the fest is called, and if people are there and it's rammed and it's packed, I imagine that for a group of people, it's doing something really right. And so I mean, essentially, I'm right now I'm sitting on the fence and I'm looking back at you and I'm saying you said something earlier, and then now you're kind of saying something else, and so for me, I'm not I'm not a politician, clearly, but for me, I think to myself, what I'm assuming the goal is to spend a little bit of money and have that return obviously be a lot greater, because the government's a business just like any other operable business, and they're thinking about the return. They're thinking about all the city taxes and the money that's getting spent, and the tax dollars, the revenue that's going to be coming in from this weekend long festival. I have no idea whatever long it lasts, the 2 or 3 days that you mentioned. So and every day people are paying for parking, people are paying for hotels, people are paying for street parking, people are street vendors, guy picking up some shopping. Oh fuck, I forgot a water bottle, I need some condoms, I'm gonna have a great night. Whatever the answer is that people are going forward with, they're going off and they're spending money. And the awareness is heightened. The awareness is heightened. For example, maybe I'm also just guessing, and who the fuck knows? I'm not there. But okay, we only had $50,000 for our marketing budget. Be like, well, actually, we just got a grant from the government, so now we have another 50. We can go 100. 100. That reach is now going to go.
That's what it's meant for. That's
okay.
Exactly what that grant money is meant for.
And you're saying that doesn't.
But that's not what's happening. What ends up happening a lot of the time. Some of the time, the money does go to the right places, but a lot of the time, it's places like Live Nation that have full-time grant writers that are taking their already profitable shows and making them more profitable by reducing their costs
Wait a
through
second.
taxpayer money.
Hold up. Is that true, what you just said? Is that fucking
Yeah,
true?
the OVO Fest, that's a Live Nation show.
Wait, the Live Nation has grant writers for their shit?
Yeah, of course they do.
Are they already getting tax subsidies as well?
Duh.
Yeah, no.
Yeah.
Hi, honestly, like, do you know what? I mean, I don't know. Maybe someone's gonna have a different answer. I think. Do you know why I'm here still, fucking decades later? Because I fucking love what I do, and there's no fucking mistaking. When people see up, they look up on the floor, they're like, "That guy
Nothing
fucking."
wrong with that.
I'm in love. All right, don't talk to me about business. I don't. As soon as I hear all this stuff, I'm just like, it makes my skin crawl a little bit. I'm like, well, I don't get it. Like, aren't they like a super huge company that's like record breaking profits? And didn't someone just inject a ridiculous amount of money over the pandemic into that company to keep it going or something? That to me, you're right. That is something a little strange. I mean, look, I'm not trying to say I'm a fan or non-fan of the company. That's not what I'm talking about. I just think that's a strange setup. And you're right. You're right. That I am agreeing with you. That those dollars could be better spent somewhere else. Right. That shit doesn't need a highlight. That doesn't need a highlight.
I will digress.
Yeah, you got me. I'm not. I gotta get a charge.
But the point is, but I'll continue with the points.
I'm still here.
So the point at the end of the day is, like, if you want, it's all well and good that people are passionate about their art, but Canada doesn't support its own. It never has. It likely never will. If you want to be, if you want to have any sort of success in this business, you have to leave, and that's, I mean, bottom line. You can scrape by a simple. It's hard to hear, but if you can scrape by a decent living, but you won't have any sort of success by staying here. And there's so many, and it hurts my heart. It really does, that there is so many talented people that I know that make beautiful, amazing music, and I've told them, like, bro, you have to leave, and they're like, no, my family's here. No, this is my home. No, like, look, you want to succeed, you can't stay here. Like, yeah, you live in the biggest city in the country, but that's it. Like, there's one or two of us in the country. The rest of it's all small towns. Like, they're not big markets. There's nowhere to play. You have to leave. But anyway, at the end of the day,
there's no anyway. It's a heavy conversation, and I'm not quite sure what the answer is here, to be honest. I mean, I'm not in charge.
But it depends. It depends on what your goals are. If you want to have a successful life as an entertainer, you won't do it here. You'll have to leave and come back.
Wow.
Period. That's the end of that discussion. But the point that I was trying to, or the goal of the things that I was trying to do was, even though I'm staying here, I want to push the music that I love and support the local artists that I like worldwide. So did the label, pushed it mostly in Europe, was an import in North America, and for the most part, it was doing okay. I got to work with Miyagi a lot under a pseudonym, Soulclaw, because he was producing records for Two Wars and Revolution at the time. They had him under contract with the Miyagi name. So I took a lot of his harder edge stuff, not really harder edge, but it's a little more techier stuff. And he just gave me the pseudonym of Soulclaw.
Right.
Then I found a duo in BC that went by Influenza, Dream, who's a drum and bass producer, and another guy called Odd Mud. Put out a record by Dyslexic from Saskatoon. Spence, who is an outstanding musician, FYI. Not only was he a next level super technical DJ, he also was like an actual musician. I had him come play a couple times where he would play like the most intricate technical new school break beats and he played a live sax over top of it. And if
That's
you didn't see
Andrew
him physically playing the sax, Andrew Spence.
Spence from
Yep.
Vancouver.
So he went by, yeah, he went, yeah.
What was his
So
DJ name?
Pure Funk number Spence. He just went by Spence.
What I think there was something. Was there something? I think there was something before that.
Oh yeah, I think before it was Slim.
That's it.
Slim.
Yes.
Yeah. So in the later years, he played in a funk band from Funk, which was amazing.
Right.
But I remember the DJ sets were so amazing. Like it was rock solid mixing. I think there was some great scratching. And if you weren't physically looking at the DJ booth, seeing him playing the sax, you would think it was part of the song.
Right.
It was so smooth and so perfect. He was just such a talent. Yeah, but like producing Canadian content, I was all about that. And you know, we had some success, not great success, but we got a lot of music out there into the world, and that was a big win. And the last release that we put out 10 in total, 10 vinyl records at least. We did some digital releases, but the last record, number 10, was with Maestro Fresh West, which was a big get. A friend of mine knew Wes through some other business dealings, and in a conversation with him one day, he's like, "Oh, I know these guys. They run a dance music record label. Would you be interested in getting some dancey remixes?" They obviously didn't say breaks up front, because what are breaks? So we actually went out to lunch with Wes, and he's a super nice guy. Told him what we were about. He sounded really interested. I'm like, "Yeah, we'd love to remix one of your songs." He's like, "Yeah, I'll send one over to you. I'll send one over to you tomorrow, and you can do whatever you want with it." Obviously, we didn't get any of the big ones. We didn't get like Let Your Backbone Slide or Drop the Needle or Conducting Things. We got one of the cuts off of his latest album at that time, which was still good. It was a song called "Heat Seekers." And Miyagi did a remix of that, which did really well. And another artist that I found out of Vancouver named Lucas Hart. I don't know what happened to him, but he had a talent. He was I put out a solo release of his. That was number 9 or 7, 9. I don't know. It was one of the later ones, but he had something. He was still working on some of the technical aspects, but he had a sound. He was good. So he did another remix. That was my favorite of the two. But yeah, our last release was Maestro Fresh West, and I think, unfortunately, the way that the label collapsed was not the best. But to be able to go out with that being our last release, I can't really complain with that.
Did you ever get any notes, messages like, "Hey, where are you guys? What's going on? Where's the next record?"
No, not that I can remember. Maybe. I know that the way that the labels collapsed. Side note for the listeners: I also later bought Two Wars and a Revolution, and assumed control of the Two Wars label group. But everything collapsed at the same time, and I was not in a great space after that. That was a very taxing experience. So I just sort of tuned out. So maybe, but not that I can recall. Yeah.
When we were talking all of this, and when you're saying you were in a great place, I actually believe I remember this cycle, this moment that you were in, and when bad stuff happens, we're here at that moment trying to figure out, obviously, how do I get out of it? How do we make it stop? But you didn't stop DJing.
No.
Some people, when they're in the midst of a collapse, would want to obviously step away from what it was that they feel perhaps caused the collapse, or they were part of it. They're just, "I don't want to do this anymore. I'm out." I'm assuming
Yeah.
that was a
So
thought that you had.
to a point. So I handled it differently. So I guess in the interest of time, I won't get into the full story. But to sum it up, the label ultimately collapsed because of what I mentioned earlier in the interview about not going into business with your friends. Um, the key reason for that is because you end up in most cases not having the hard conversations that you need to have, that you would have with either a stranger or just a business partner, because you don't want to harm the friendship, you don't want to hurt their feelings, you don't want to have your feelings hurt, so you tend to shy away from those hard conversations, and that's exactly what happened. I was doing literally everything to run the label. He had one job to do, and that was essentially to manage the money. Um, the money didn't get managed, and everything just fell apart in a very quick succession. Um, I I should have, in retrospect, had more conversations about the money. I was just blindly trusting that it was being managed, but it wasn't. Um, am I completely blameless? No, but like it's like an 80-20 sort of thing. Um, so yeah, so everything collapsed. The labels collapsed. The label group collapsed. And the worst part about all of that was that of the 4 or 5 years that we were in existence, we were growing. We were making more moves, more and more like valuable moves where the payoff was coming. And the thing that hurt the most was that um, as we were working toward, we got these releases out. We were like record after record after record. We were doing lots of promo. We were doing lots of marketing, running the label group, maintaining a bunch of stuff. And then just as everything was collapsing, like we had just gone over the hill to the steep downward call the decline. I got a call from a music manager that I had been working with for a long time to get our stuff licensed to film and TV, which is where the money is. If you run a label, talking to you people out there, if you're running a label and you're not trying to get your stuff licensed, you're wasting your time because all of the money is in licensing. But I remember getting a call as I'm like crumbling from watching this collapse take place. I get a call saying, "Hey, I finally got a hit. We want to put one of your songs in an episode of CSI New York. This much money and this like it's everything that I had been working towards, and I couldn't take the deal because at that point our bank accounts were seized. Even if they um, like it was just a monumental collapse. It was just like as it's like you fell off the cliff and somebody's punching you on the way down, and it was just like it was just beating
I
after
don't mean to
beating
laugh
after
at you. Your
beating.
description's
I
fantastic.
was no, but it's the proper visualization. It's like everything was going great. I'm climbing the hill. I'm climbing the hill. I'm climbing the hill, and then all of a sudden I get pushed off a cliff. Somebody's punching me on the way down, and I land in like a bed of snakes. It was like
Does
just getting bitten. Like it was just awful because it wasn't just that. There was other stuff going on at the same time where it was just like everything went wrong in a very short period of time. So that's if I had to pinpoint it, that's when the passion for pushing the music died. I had just had enough. Now my passion for DJing superseded all of that, thankfully. So I still kept up with that, but everything else I was just done. I had had enough. It's like it's just it's to me it seemed like I had given so much and people had taken so much that I had been left with nothing.
you're
I had
having
nothing
you're
left to
having
give. I had nothing to show for it.
you're having a relationship. You're in a relationship.
Mm,
Okay? And in
yeah.
any
So yeah, no, I
relationship,
get that comparison. But
there are highs and lows. I've got two questions, and
mhm.
then yeah. first is this, which is definitely talking about a lot of what you've been talking about over the course of the episode. This is not the most important question, but my last question is going to be my most important question. But does following, because I'm asking you this question because I'm aware of your mythology. I'm aware of your deconstructed efforts. I'm aware of the spreadsheets. I'm aware of your awareness and how you wish to operate. I obviously am not aware of the entirety of the details, and why would I? I'm not you. But does following a rule or blueprint stunt creativity and random wonderful moments? What?
I don't know. I don't know that I'm the right one to ask. And the reason that I
Yo,
say that is
you are
because
the right one to ask.
I don't consider myself a creative. Um,
What?
Creatives, like, and I've dealt with tons of them over the years. So, like, I create in a way, but I don't see myself as a creative.
Wild.
I see, like, because I don't create anything. I, I create experiences, and that's about it. But like, I'm not a musician. I'm not a performer. I'm not an entertainer. I'm a DJ. Um, does the blueprint, like, I believe in the blueprint because it's based on rules. It's based on, not rules, but how do you explain it? It's based on a proven track record. So I don't know. That's a tough question. Like, creativity will find a way, no matter what.
Okay.
There's ways to optimize it. There's way to make. There's a way to be more efficient about it. There's lots of examples in life of somebody that created something, and if they had only done this one thing that's on the checklist, they would be in a much better position. But who am I to say?
You're demonic. Here's what I've got to ask. This to me is the most important question I've got for you for tonight's show. After hearing what you said, we had an emotional run on our previous recording. I'll admit, I almost cried at the end. The idea and
Yeah, it was nice.
and you know, I have a strong respect and appreciation for you, regardless of our differences. And I enjoy doing this with you because typically, regardless of my antics or clowning statements or sarcasm that I'm constantly jabbing in, I do a great deal of reflection when we go our separate ways. Knowing that you had these trials and tribulations over the course of the acquisition of Two Wars, prior to the creation of Pure Funk, going through all of it, realizing that working with a great friend and having that not just dissolve your relationship, but also end the working effort and put yourself into a position of arrears. How do you stay positive and move forward after these experiences?
There are very few people in this world that would consider me a positive person.
Well, I think
however,
that they're missing the point.
But basically, I think if I rephrase the question, is how did I keep going?
That is a yes.
Yeah. So I can't. I would need another 2 hours to really get into the details on how badly everything went wrong.
If you want to come
It's
back,
easy to
all
just
you
say,
got to
"Oh,
do is ask." At this point now, I mean,
maybe
we're dating,
we'll
so
see." Yeah, I know. This is our third time around, and I am the
You don't
first
want to
third
come
time
back.
show,
Just say the
so
word, baby. I'll have you back.
we'll see. But like, I don't obviously like you want some sort of entertaining show. I don't want to bring everybody down.
I
But if I was to summarize, yeah, that period, that particular period of, I think it was, I want to say 2008 ish, 2007 to like 2011 or 12 were probably the worst years. And that also includes, for those that know me, that includes the mixer theft incident at Republic, which was a massive kick in the face.
Mixer theft?
But that's for another time.
Okay.
Yeah, you know that story.
I don't, but like you said,
Um,
let's save it.
but yeah, it was like it was another act of betrayal. But yeah, it was extremely hard. I lost my businesses. I lost my best friend. I lost another best friend. Um, everything, like my personal life went to shit. Everything was bad at that time, but DJing, I still loved it more than anything. I still did that for as long as I could. At that time, after everything just did go very, very south, I removed myself from the scene being my sole source of income. I actually went and got a job after that because I just had enough. So
Because what you were doing
actually, I
before
remember I
wasn't
left.
work.
I
It
left to
wasn't
the
a job.
beat. It was a job, but I just had enough of it. I didn't mind because like when you're in that sort of entrepreneurial space, you don't know where your next check is coming from.
Yeah.
It's very tough. It's that even that part alone is hard. But when all of the passion is drained from you and all of your drive is drained from you, fighting for that paycheck is not something I was interested in doing anymore. So I just went and got a regular job that had a paycheck because I had enough. And that allowed me to continue to DJ on the side to um, to at least continue to do the thing that I loved.
So here's the magic:
So I did
what
that.
you just said. That's the magic here. I believe this is the magic. That despite everything that going on, and I'm clearly unaware of all the details, but despite the details I'm aware of, despite the stuff that went on, that you're immersed. You didn't let go, and 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 it's, I think, a great way of firstly, when you said a lot of people might see as negative, a true form of strength, or one of the descriptions might be perseverance. Okay, the idea that you had a kick
Mm.
and then you got up. Okay, there is a great deal of positive energy and strong influence that needs to be shared from this idea. To me, this is actually one of your strongest points. I mean, we can look at all of your superhero abilities that you've got on marketing, being behind the scenes, organizing, curating, executing, and you're a specialist at it. I want to work with you. But I think that this might not be your superpower, actually. The superpower is what we're talking about right now. And this isn't just about music. This is about being a person. Anybody who's had a kick, especially doing something that you love, knows exactly how fucking hard it is to get back up. It's not easy. Especially when you feel a form of shame or embarrassment that could be around it. I'm not saying that that's what you felt, but maybe you did. And the idea that we have to come back from this.
That was part of it.
The idea that we have to come back from this and stand back up in a room full of people that watched you fall. But you get back up. You're strong as fuck. And that's that. I'm not going to ask you the 3-record questions.
And I will say that and I mentioned this before, that it really does go to show you how amazing things were, and I guess have been, that even though I've lived through those types of collapses, losing like 2 best friends and more, that I still have positive things to say about it, and I'm still in it. So I think the biggest part of managing that time was just finding enough engagement to feed the beast, to just keep the addiction alive. So that also through that period. So while I was still playing, I was also helping out Destiny a lot, and that grew into a bigger role over time. But yeah, that was a dark time. Things are obviously better now,
Clearly.
but it, yeah, but that was a dark time, and I don't, and it does suck to have your passion literally drained out of you.
100%.
But
100%.
yeah, but it is what it is. It happened.
All relationships have a form
Can't
of,
change the past.
no, you can't. All relationships have a form of give and take, and definitely an up and a down. You know, and it's hard not to just focus on that stuff. I do know that I don't like the downs, but I do know that
Nobody does.
I do know when they happen that there'll be a swing, and boy, I'm looking forward to that. We have to look towards what's next. All right, we have to all believe that there
Yeah,
could
and I
be a
think
next.
now to be fair, like all from the time before the collapse and prior, there were tons of failures in there, tons of them. But you're so focused on just climbing that mountain of just moving forward and building and building and building on top of things, continuous improvement, just building and building and building. Those failures didn't matter. It was just the magnitude and the onslaught of all of those failures that there was just no level of optimism that could overcome it. Like it just got to the point where you didn't see a point anymore. But yeah, up until that point, it was like, yeah, there's always ups and downs. But if you still have that drive and passion, nothing is going to stop you from reaching your goals. Failures are fine. I'm fine with failures because you learn things. It's just unfortunate that I got a college level degree in failures all in one shot. I learned too much in that experience. But
You got an MBA.
you live and you learn.
Got an
So
MBA.
don't go into business with your friends. And that's my only really takeaway.
Don't remember. I feel like we did this. We're going to do it again. It's maybe or this is my edit. It's not that don't go into business with your friends.
Literally.
Don't go into business with friends who are just going to say yes.
Yeah.
Right.
But
because if they
like
just
I said,
say yes,
the fact that I did all of that. What was the question?
Hey, that was the question. It was that last question. It was, what is the idea and how do you move forward
You just do.
and
Yeah, I think what I ended up doing is I just found enough to keep me busy on the side. So I had a steady income that I didn't have to worry about during the day, and then enough fun stuff at night that didn't stress me out anymore because it was just fun. And over time, things healed, and things just, obviously, I these days I don't play as much as I used to, but I do from time to time, and I enjoy it. You might catch the occasional live stream. So, yeah, go ahead.
I wanted to talk. I wanted to talk to you about that. I brought it up earlier in the show, and we didn't get to it. Was sustainability. The idea that you should be out 3-4 nights a week and performing, and then what that might mean, and then and this is it's part of a much larger and bigger conversation. I can't do that with you now, so I guess fuck it.
Well, to a point, like. Yeah, and something that stuck with me. Somebody told me many years ago that, like, especially after the labels collapsed, they said that your next business should not be a taste-based business, and that really stuck with me because things, especially like in the entertainment business, it's driven by tastes, and tastes change. So I think we covered that in a previous episode, that brakes was popular for a long time, and then it wasn't because tastes changed.
Yeah.
Like branding issues aside, the people that used to come to brakes parties were no longer going to brakes parties. They were going to more fun parties.
More fun
Gives
parties.
me hope now. Yeah, like that. We mentioned that in the last time that in the previous interview, the one in March, that around the time of the hipster electro parties, like the circas and the socials and the ADD parties, they were just more fun and more interesting. So all the brakes people went over there. So that happens. But the thing that gives me, well, it's because they were fun, they were cool looking parties. But the thing that gives me hope right now
is they fucking weren't doing the rules of the other parties. That's why they forgot about those rules. Okay, they were different rules.
It was just rules we covered that in depth in the last published interview. It was just a cool place to be. But
sure.
the thing that gives me hope
was
right
fucking
now,
cool. I mean, like Circa was a cool venue.
It was, and it was an experience. But anyway, we covered that already. But the thing that is giving me hope right now is that brakes are coming back in a big way, but people don't know their brakes. And I had mentioned this to you previously, that I was on a stream produced by Beatport a month or so ago, and there was this DJ from France that was billed as playing techno, but all she was playing was breaks. They were like darker, like new school breaks, for lack of a better word, but they were breaks nonetheless. But she was a techno DJ. All the people in the chat loved this techno DJ. She was playing breaks, not even electro breaks, just like other breaks. So the music is coming back in a big way. The problem now is that people, like it was before, people just don't know it as breaks. So we're going to have to find another way around that. But I'm glad to see that the music is as strong as it's ever been. It's better than it's ever been, my opinion. So that's something to be optimistic about. So I'm pretty happy with that.
I think there's actually a ton of optimism here at the end of the show, and knowing that you're still carrying on with a mission is what makes me happy. And I guess that's pretty much what I was trying to say when we were talking about the idea. I asked you in the unpublished episode, what was the difference between a record label and a playlist? And you said not much.
Yep.
Gosh, we need a pure funk playlist. That is, and however you would treat it and operate it. The very idea that this could happen, and that the investment is just your time, and then of course
it's been on my to-do list for a while, actually.
I think this is the ultimate mission for you, my man, for real. I think that, like, especially like you said, if you feel that there's a vibe that's coming back, listen, I'm not a believer in coincidence. Okay, I just don't believe in it. I think coincidence is a word that people use when they don't understand what the fuck is going on, and the very idea that I have been putting a lot of breakbeats in Utility Room, and you're right. Right now, out on the dance floor right now, it seems there's a lot of breaks happening, and nobody's calling it breaks. That's fine. It's the music that I give a fuck about, not the genre name.
Yep.
The genre name is just what we used to call it so we can identify it with each other. But really, at the end of the day, I mean, what do you want to do? You want to look at each other and be like, hey, you want to do the funky chicken with me? Let's go out there and do the funky chicken. Right? Because, I mean, that's not... I absolutely adore having you with us. You are fucking magic to me. And thank you again, and again. And also thank you for not thinking that I'm a total goofball fuck by not engaging my microphone on the recording of the last show.
Do, but mistakes happen. So, but I'm glad we actually went down a different road this time around, and that was
I promised you we would.
So
I promised you.
Yeah, and that's exactly what happened. So it was good.
Great. My name is Jello. You are absolutely fantastic with us here in the room tonight. D-Monic, round 3. And I'm confident we're going to see the 4. You're here with us here in the utility room. Make sure to like, comment, subscribe, rate, share, do all the things that make the room go boom. And we will see you Saturday night. Thanks for tuning in.